If you're a startup founder and you are just not exactly sure what to talk about in your videos, or you feel like you're always struggling to get customers to sign up for your app, or you feel like you're twisting their arm, or you're writing a sales copy, or you're making ads, or you're making content, and you just don't know what to say, it might be because you haven't really figured out the problem, or you haven't been able to articulate, or as we are going to do in this video, map out the problem. And I say the problem with the capital T and the capital P, the big problem that your app or product is solving. So let's go through it. Let's figure out, as a startup, how can I map out my problem? How can I start to, this is going to be a little thinking exercise for you, a little strategy mental session for you. So if you got a piece of paper right now, take it here, save this video for later. We're going to go through a couple questions that are going to get your brain thinking about the problem that your product is solving, the problem that your app is solving. And in no particular order, I'm just going to go around this little mind map here, and we will get started. So let's start here at the bottom. The first one, let's draw a little arrow to it. Oh, that is a tiny, pathetic little arrow. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. The first one is this a big problem? Is this a problem that, in your customer's mind, is a big, nasty problem, or is it just a kind of small, little, tiny problem? And I figure we use the example of a sleep app tracker as the main thing. So the sleep app tracker, the problem being my customers need to track their sleep so they can improve their sleep and have better sleep patterns and better sleep habits. And so then the question is sleep, or is tracking your sleep or trying to improve your sleep, is that a big problem? Is that a problem that is big enough to be solved? And when I say big, I also mean, like, is it a small problem? If it's a small problem in your customer's mind, they can oftentimes put off solving that problem, and there's no urgency. It's not really that bad. They kind of deal with it. Whereas, like, so in this scenario, a sleep tracking app, the promise or the problem that they're trying to solve is improve your sleep. And that is huge for people. So yes, that would be a big problem. Next question to get your brain working is, when your customers are, let's draw another arrow. Here we go. This is now let's get into our customers' shoes. Think about them. This might be too big. There we go. What emotions do they feel when they experience this problem? This is a thinking exercise. Like, just write down everything you can think of for the next minute, next 2 minutes. What emotions, what do they go through, your customers, when they have this problem? So for the sleep tracking app example, when they have bad sleep, what emotions do they feel? Or how does their day get impacted by having this problem present itself? So if they have horrible sleep and they're not able to, what do they feel? They feel angry. They feel irritable. They feel emotionally short. They feel just not great, and they want the day to be over, and they are just looking forward to getting back to sleep. That's how they feel. So that's like, now we're kind of getting in the mindset of our customers. We're thinking about, so those are some of the emotions. So with your app or product, when your customer has the problem, and before they download and start using your product, what emotions are they feeling? What are they going through if they have this problem? Not just here are the things that are actually happening in my life, the events, like internally. What are they thinking? What is, like, the cuss word that they're using when they're having this problem? These are some things to think about. Let's go to the next one. What have they tried in the past to solve it? This is going to give you some insight on maybe not saying the wrong thing to your customers, or not putting your foot in your mouth, or not making some just odd, dumb, out-of-touch suggestions to your customers where they will just slap you right back in the face and say, yeah, dude, I've already tried that, and it doesn't work. So this is like, so what have they tried? Before they use your sleep tracking app, and what have they tried to use in the past? They've tried to use alarms, they've tried to use blackout curtains, they've tried to cool the room down, they've taken CBD gummies, they've taken melatonin, they do all these yoga stretching, and none of it's worked, and they still have horrible sleep. And so those would be some things that your customers tried in the past. And you kind of think of, like, what have they gone through? What have they tested out? What other apps have they maybe tried? What have they bought? Have they done a course? Have they read books? Have they listened to podcasts? Have they what YouTube videos have they watched to try to solve this? Think about what they have done in the past to try to solve this problem. Now we're moving. Now we're rocking. This one I want to come back to because it has to do with this one up here. So the next one is, we'll come back to it, I promise. The next one here is, what are competitors doing to solve it? So this is similar to like, what have your customers tried in the past? You need to kind of look out in the market. And the question is always like, if there's competitors out there, should I be doing this app? Is this the right app for me? Is this the right problem to be solving? What are your competitors doing out there? What are they doing to try to solve this issue? And that's going to give you an indication of, one, like, where's the market going? And two, can you try to do that a little bit better than they can? And also, it's going to give you a sense too about around the problem itself of like, are there competitors in this market? Because people are going to take the blue ocean strategy a little too literally, or they kind of like they think they're going to be the next $1 billion company, when really, dude, you might just be $100,000 a month kind of company, which is fine. But they think like, okay, I don't have this is such a new territory. No one's ever even heard of this kind of category. I'm totally setting out on my own. This is blue ocean. There's no competitors in this because we are so unique. Being so unique is not good, because that means there's not enough customers in that market that want this problem solved. But if there's a ton of competitors in your market and you go, wow, this is really competitive, I feel like I'm going to be like 5th place all the time, never be in the number 1 slot. Well, that just also means that there's a lot of customers in there, and some of those customers are pissed off with products 1 through 4, and they're now looking at you, product number 5, to be like, can you solve this problem? I've tried all these other apps and they suck, but can your app do a little bit better, 10% better, 100% better? Yes or no, let me know. So what are they doing? Figure that out, and that's going to give you a sense of knowing what your competitors are doing. Again, kind of brings you back into reality and keeps you from just saying some out-of-touch shit in your copywriting that is just not connected and it's not grounded in anything. And when you can poke your customer in the chest with your copywriting, with your ads, with your videos, and say, yeah, you might have already tried you doing this, doing that, buying this product, buying that product, and it didn't work, and here's, and it's okay. They've done their best. Those competitors over there have done their best. They've tried to solve that problem. You see this all the time in great keynotes, and if you're on this YouTube channel, go to my Rabbit R1 review, where the Rabbit R1 CEO guy talks about app-based solutions, and he talks about the smartphones in the past have done their best to try to solve this problem, but they almost got there, but they didn't quite get there. You're kind of giving it like a gentle nod to the people that you're standing your shoulders on. You're standing on their shoulders. So what have they done the best? Let's move on. Let's keep it moving. The next is common scenarios. I almost said uncommon scenarios, but that's the other one. Uncommon scenarios. Common scenarios. What are when they experience the problem? What does it look like? What's 80% of the time? This is what it looks like. This is what it typically happens. Yeah, when you are, if I'm doing a sleep tracking app, yeah, you tell yourself you're going to go to bed at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. and you look away, you get distracted. The next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. and you've got to wake up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and your day is entirely ruined because you got distracted with XYZ, because you didn't do this, because you know that your sleep is not going to be great, so you're not looking forward to going to sleep. Those are the common scenarios. And then you switch over here and go to the uncommon scenarios. Now, the uncommon scenarios they're obviously going to be uncommon, and not all your customers are going to have it. But the customers that do have these uncommon scenarios are going to feel especially connected to your product and especially connected to you, because you're talking about something that no one else in the market has ever talked about, that they specifically have that problem. And this is actually where you can find your super consumers. Super consumers comes from the book Snow Leopard. That's where you find these people that are it's like you're 10% of your customer base, but they end up driving 30, 40, 50% of your profit because they love your product. They feel like this is the only product for them. They've tried everything else out in the market, but they found your product and they're not going anywhere. And like, they're begging you, like, please don't change this. Please don't update this. They end up sometimes becoming like your legacy customers where they're still using like the old version of your app because they don't want to change anything. And these are also, if you were able to, with super consumers too, they are the ones that are going to advocate and bring in the rest of a lot of your other customers. So if you can figure out the uncommon solution, so with like a sleep tracking app, they'd be like, hey, maybe you are a new mom, or maybe you're a new dad, and your sleep is terrible because you have a newborn baby, and you're just trying to get some kind of sleep. And with this app, we're able to solve that. So if I, as a father of two-year-old boys going through that lack of sleep period, if I had some kind of app that would be like, talk directly to me, like, hey, if you're a new dad and you are barely making it through on 2 hours of sleep, here's how to get the best sleep of your life using our app. Dude, sign me up. Like, hey, dude, you're talking right to me. So, and then if I were to use that app and it changed my life, or I would tell every other new dad about that and be like, dude, you got to get this app. That's how you grow those super consumers. So uncommon scenarios. I feel like we're cooking. I feel like this feels pretty good. The next thing to think about is why now? Why solve this problem now? And this kind of connects a little bit to, like, is this a big enough problem? Why now? Why solve the problem now? Like, can't you just put it off? Or, is it really that big of a problem? With sleep tracking apps, you can, like, do I really need to improve my sleep now? Or can I just, I'm kind of busy right now. I'm getting only 4 hours of sleep. I'm fine. You're like, no, like, why now? Because I feel like shit every single day. So I need to solve this now. I need to figure out my sleep. But if it's a tiny little problem, like, hey, like, learn to do the splits, or like, hey, how to do a handstand. This app teaches you how to do a handstand. Be like, do I really need to know? Oh, that's cool. Like, but do I need to know how to do a handstand right now? And I don't really have any handstand competitions coming up, so there's no real urgency. So if there's no urgency with the problem or to solve the problem, then that means you're going to constantly in your marketing be like pushing people, threatening people, urgency, scarcity, doing all this kind of fake pressure around your app and around your marketing. And this is where sales feels gross and sticky and nasty, because there's no urgency. There's no natural urgency to get your product. If I don't have yes, adding urgency and scarcity and doing all those like cool marketing tricks works and it's great, but if you're only relying on that and there's no natural urgency to solve this problem, you're fighting an uphill battle every damn day, and it feels tough as hell as a founder. That's where most founders give up, because they have a problem that doesn't really need to be solved right now in this particular moment, and then they're figuring out, like, why aren't customers jumping in today? So with sleep, like the sleep tracking app, like, hey, you need to solve your problem now. This is why you need to do it. So think about that. Like, do your customers need to solve this problem now? Yes or no? No, why not? And then yes, why do they need to solve it? And then finally, the last one that I could think of for this exercise is, and I'm sure there's plenty more out there, and if you can think of another one to like help map out the problem, and put it in the comments, let me know. The last one I have here is, what happens when this doesn't get solved? And this goes back to a framework that I'm always following with how we do our launches here on Nice Slice Studio. What happens when it's the problem, agitate, solve framework? Look it up, PAS framework, or if you're on YouTube, type in PAS framework. I should do a PAS framework video on here. What happens when this problem doesn't get solved? So we talked about the problem itself. That's the P, and then you go to the A phase, the agitate phase. That is, what happens when this gets worse? Or if this doesn't get solved, what happens? And then you need to think about all those dark scenarios, all the like, what? Yeah, actually, if I don't get sleep, then I'm going to get more irritable. I'm going to start eating worse. I might start drinking too much. I might start gaining weight. I might be out of shape. I might say something I shouldn't say at work, or because I'm too cranky, or I'm just not the most productive employee, or I pissed somebody off, or just like I am just a nasty person because I didn't get enough sleep, and then that improves my quality of life. And so like start to think about like put yourself in your customer's shoes and think about, if they don't solve this problem that I'm proposing to solve, what happens? What bad thing happens? Like kind of get a little pessimistic for this exercise. And then I want you to think about, after that, what happens? And then what happens after that? And then what happens after that? And if you can map that out, if you can figure that out, then you have a great problem section on your sales page, a great problem agitate for your email marketing. Just talking about like, hey, if you don't solve this, like for Nice Life Studio, for the problem that we're solving is like startups can't launch. They have a difficult ability to launch. They have an app ready to go. They're excited, but there's this big wall in front of them called launching, and they don't know how to get over this wall of like, all you have to do is launch your product and get customers to know about your product, and that is just a huge problem for them. And then the agitate is like, well, if you don't launch your product, then no one's going to find out about your product, and then you have spent all this time developing, making feature after feature on this app that no one is ever going to hear about, and then you kind of waste your time, and then you have to give up this dream of being a SaaS founder, and then you have to go back to your 9-to-5 or whatever the hell else you're going to do after that. So that's what you have to think about, like what happens after this, and what gets worse. So if for Nice Life Studio, if a startup founder can't launch, then they can't grow their business, then they have to give up their business altogether and shut it down, and then it becomes a side hustle, and then you get angry and pissed off, and then you have to go join at 9-to-5, and then you're an angry, pissed off 9-to-5 employee, and then you get fired from that because you were just so disgruntled with your inability to launch your startup, and you're missing the glory days, and then you just become a worse and worse person, and then you're living back at your mom's house. Like that's a great mental exercise. So what is that for your product? If your customer does not solve this problem, let's say they don't decide to sign up for your app. Let's say they put it off, they forego it, and things get worse. What happens? So those are some interesting things to think about, guys. This is a great copywriting exercise, at the very least. But really, this is like how you communicate to the world about the problem. Like if you have mapped all this out, if you know the answers to all 8 of these modules here, if you can answer all 8 of these questions, then you, my friend, have become a true expert at the problem that you were trying to solve, and people buy from experts that can give them confidence that they understand their problems. If my doctor understands my problem, I have confidence in them. If the salesperson understands my problems in and out, backwards and forwards, and if they have the ability to articulate the problems that I know that I had, but I didn't know that I actually had, if they can articulate that, if you can articulate that, then getting customers to sign up is going to be a hell of a lot more easier. You're not going to feel salesy. You're not going to have to do too much, all this overhype, over promotion, pushing people, pressuring people. It's just going to become a very natural process, because your customers feel heard. They feel like that you understand their problems, and who better to solve my problem than someone who understands me perfectly? So that is the exercise for today, guys. That is how you map out your problems, or the problem that you're trying to solve with your product. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Jordan P. Anderson with Nice Life Studio, and we'll see you on the next one.